All right, welcome all. Today we are going to cover the following things. First, a review of 1400 and 1410 concepts. I always get a kick out of this to see how unprepared everybody is. If you come into this class feeling unprepared, I want you to feel like you're alongside everybody else. If you are prepared, something's wrong with you. We're going to cover the class outline in Canvas. This process can take, and covering the syllabus as well, this process, I know the first day is boring. I've been a student. It's obnoxious. It still takes 45 minutes. I've been trying to find faster ways. I can't get there. It's all good information. You need to know it. You can ask questions along the way. And then we can talk about C++ review. We can actually start coding afterward. Let's see. Online students, I'm going to kind of ignore you for a bit, but I'll come back to, well, I should probably see if I can you part screen I'll have to, you give me your votes afterward. There's only one of you online. If there's a way I can part screen my presentations, let me know. I usually don't use PowerPoint often. All right, so let's do some votes on these. By raise of hands, don't yell it out. You can kind of even give me thumbs up or half raised hands just to help me understand. I want to know how comfortable you are with these topics. And I want honest answers. You pay good money. I understand people make mistakes. If you are behind on things, and the majority of you are behind on things, I will slow down and teach it to you. If you claim that you know everything, then I will proceed as if you know everything. So please give me good, honest answers. All right, so let's start with the top one. How many of you feel comfortable writing loops? Does anybody not feel comfortable with this? Someone's got to be the brave student. Nobody? All right, everybody said yes to that one. How about writing functions and methods? Could you, if I say write this function, pass in this data, return this result? Raise your hands if you feel comfortable. Raise your hand if you're not quite comfortable. All right, so we're getting some votes here. 1, 2, 3. And just to help me out, and also so the online students can feel better about themselves, tell me what it is about them you don't like.
Trying to remember how to pass these.
How to pass arguments in.
What to pass in.
In the back, it was, I'm going to get this. How do I say it? Alistair?
Yeah.
Alistair.
Yeah,
Same thing. And Emmanuel?
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing. It's just new. You're not comfortable with it. You haven't done it a lot.
Yeah.
There's nothing really weird about the whole process. You just maybe more practice. All right. You know, I didn't add this on here. How about? Oh, there's two more I got to add right now. Why not? We're gonna make this font small. Overloading. And we'll also do overloading methods. We'll say overloading operators. Yeah, let's do those. Let's go back to slideshow from current slide. All right, raise your hand if you are comfortable with overloading methods or overloading functions. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're not comfortable or you don't know what it is. So the two of you who said you were not comfortable before, you should have been raising your hand. So one more.
I just haven't.
You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
All right. So for someone who is very comfortable, describe it. Right now, you get an A in the class. You don't have to. It's over.
They can have the same name with different signatures.
Same name, different signatures. You could pass in 3 arguments, or maybe 4 arguments, or maybe the arguments are string, 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 and then int, int, int. The compiler can say, oh, based on what you're passing in, I must mean to be calling this one. All right, how about overloading operators? How many of you are comfortable with that? Raise of hands. All right. Not comfortable. Now we're at 50% more not comfortable. This is not that hard to understand. I know it looks weird. It's really just another form of overloading overloading a function. We'll get to that in the semester. Don't be afraid of it. Yes?
Is that where you use like the friend keyword?
No, has nothing to do with friend. Nothing at all. Did you raise your hand on that topic then? Yes, sir?
I was like, sort of.
All right, so you should go back to the no category.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, working with arrays. How many of you are comfortable using an array, filling it up with data, retrieving data out of it? Raise your hands if you like arrays. Raise your hand if you're not sure about arrays. This helps me. So 2 or 3 of you. Important one, debugging code. This one is actually rather important. It's probably the most important one. So actually of all these, I'd say this is the most important. How many of you have good practice debugging code, specifically not just writing little printf or cout or print line statements, but actually using step in, step over, step out? You can use the watch window. You can set breakpoints. Raise your hands if you've done that. Raise your hands if you have not done that or not familiar with it. All right, we're about 1/3 of you are not familiar. And why don't you know this? I need to find the previous instructor and beat them. So tell me who they are. Those of you who raised your hand the second time, you're not comfortable. Why don't you know this? Never used it? Did you take a class from Weber State?
Last class I took was 14.
And who was it from? I want to shame them. Delroy. Oh, I don't want to shame him. He's the best one we've got. I like Delroy a lot. So you don't feel like you got debugging experience with Delroy?
I didn't want to use the debugger.
He didn't want to use it? All right. I shouldn't be doing this because then other instructors are going to do the same format and shame me. Anybody else? I need to know why. Why don't you know it? It helps me understand and helps me teach.
I just use like different parts of debugging, like a window you were talking about. I use that, or I've used like.
Or you never needed it?
Probably.
Was that why? Like, how did you get your programs done before without? Like, it amazes me that people can do programs without the debugger. I don't know how it's possible. I think that's a feat in itself. I can tell you it can't happen in this class. It is impossible to do some of my assignments without a debugger, period. There's just too much going on. But so raise your hands again. You're not familiar with debuggers? So tell me why. I'm going to pick on you, Christina.
It's the same way too. I took the same class with the same professor.
All right. And Burke? Also Delroy?
No, I had 2250.
Okay, so you're an EE student?
So, yeah,
All right.
and they didn't go over that I can remember.
All right, so we'll cover this a lot more. Now we start getting into ones where people are definitely not as comfortable. How about dynamic allocation and deallocation? If I said, I want you to write a program, and the program asks the user for an array size, and based on what they said, suppose they gave you 700. You create an array of 700 items. And then when it's done, you clean that up. You give it back. Raise your hand if you are comfortable with that process. One. Oh dear. And who is not comfortable? Oh, this is a problem. What? All right, so tell me. You said, how do you do it? What's the magic keyword?
What, clean up an array?
To make an array. Not a compile time, a run time. Or let's say the user said, I want 1 million. You make sure you exactly allocate 1 million items.
It's just brackets around it, isn't it?
No, there's more than that. So
I'm coming from other languages here.
All right.
Not all
It
C++.
is- All right, so I'm going to put you with everybody else. The magic keyword is new or malloc. There's other variations, but new in C++, malloc in the C world. There's actually two different kinds of new in C++, new and new with square brackets. And then there's delete to clean it up, or free for the malloc version. So in C++, it doesn't automatically allocate stuff for you. You got to do it. Now I have been moving into some more nice C++ 11 features. Make shared and make unique. They help give you some managed variables for you. Or it's not managed, but they do some tricks to make it a lot nicer. All right, so big work needed on this one. How about stack versus heap? Do you know the difference? Raise your hands if you know this. What is it? One of two of you. One of you. Tell me.
The stack is where it's allocated automatically, and heap is where it's dynamically allocated.
Yes, the stack, and do you know the size difference between the two?
No.
All right, so the stack is where variables you just make naturally are automatically placed there. And it's not really they're automatically allocated, it's just it sets aside some spot in the stack space for you. Said, here's your object, here's your variable. It's only a few megabytes in size, not very big. The heap is for all the dynamic allocation, and it can be gigabytes or more in size. Do you know when a variable goes out of scope? What's the best way to tell when a variable goes out of scope? Or if you don't even know what that means, Raise your hands if you know how you can point when a variable goes out of scope. Anybody? One of you, maybe. You're the only one, so go for it.
So, when a variable goes out of scope, I don't know how exactly to put it in words, but if it's out of scope, the database will no longer accessible.
The what?
No longer accessible.
And why? What mark? When can you say in a program, here it's in scope, here it's out of scope?
So, for example, if you have an iterator variable in a for loop,
Okay.
once you leave that for loop, that variable is no longer accessible.
Yes. So a variable created in a for loop is not accessible outside a for loop.
Right.
There's an even more generalized version of this, and it's the curly braces. Curly braces are actually scope braces. So you can actually, we'll talk about this more. I just wanted to see, I like putting people on the spot. You did pretty good. You did better than everybody else. You should all feel ashamed. Look to Brendan if you want to cheat. I hear he pays out good, or he has good rates. Pointers. Raise your hands if this should have been covered in 1410. I know it's been covered. How many of you, raise your hands if you're comfortable with pointers? 2, 3. What do pointers store? Everybody give me hand waves. It's like jazz hands out there.
A reference to an address.
It holds an address. And what happens if you go to that memory address? You find your data. Whatever that data could be. So a pointer is nothing more or nothing less than an address. And you can use that. Usually pointers make a lot of sense with dynamic allocation. You have something out there in the heap, in the dynamically allocated memory, but you want to know where it's at. You'll need an address to know where it's at. Pointers serve that purpose. Pointers are not difficult. When I was a student, I rebelled against pointers. I thought they were needlessly complicated. Until somebody just said, literally, all it is an address to a chunk of data. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't let it scare you. There's nothing crazy happening. All right, this is kind of a side one. C strings or C++ strings. Did you ever go over that difference? Raise your hand if you know that difference. All right, so define it for me. Why are they different?
I can't remember, but I know C++ strings, they're basically words.
They're basically words.
How else to explain?
All right, let's keep going.
C strings are basically just character arrays, but C++ strings are actual objects.
Yes, C strings are really just char arrays. C++ strings are really objects. They're very different kinds. So a C string, even if it's a char array, there's something they add on to the end of it to make it different from a normal char array. Do you remember there's one extra thing on it? The \0, the null character. That lets it know this is the end of our usable stuff. The C++ string is more of just an object. Let it take care of how it wants to manage it for you. Templates. I won't even bother asking this one. I hear that almost every 1410 class ends the last day of lectures with, oh, by the way, we're out of time. Let me show you a 5-minute example of templates. You'll cover it in the future. Is that what you all got? Did anybody get anything beyond that?
We did a whole assignment.
You did? In what class?
Brinkerhoff's class.
Good for Brinkerhoff. He's been redeemed. A whole assignment on it.
He basically just gave us the assignment. We just had to change
Fill in the
a bunch of
pieces.
stuff, and
Sure.
So we covered.
See, I find that this topic is probably the easiest one to pick up. We can pick it up fast. Don't let it. It's also, I think, the coolest one of all of these. We'll go over it more. Usually we get some good votes here. How many of you are comfortable using objects, object-oriented programming? Is there anybody who genuinely doesn't know how to make an object, or you never have done object-oriented programming? Raise your hands. I would have raised my hand when I took this class long ago. I took the class having no understanding of what an object was. I didn't figure it out till the last week of the semester. Light bulb went off. Anybody? So everybody gets objects. Okay? How about inheritance? Raise your hands if you understand inheritance. You don't understand it, raise your hands. Now we're back to a 50-50 split. You know you covered this in 1410, right? It had to have been. It was probably pretty heavy on the test. So there's public scope in inheritance. What other kind of scopes are there in inheritance? What does public scope mean?
Access by anything.
Anybody can access it. People out in Maine, people in the class. What's another scope?
Protected.
Private. What does private mean?
It can only be accessed within the class.
Only within the class can they access it. People out in Maine cannot access it. Is there another scope? Protected. Do you know what this one is? Makes sense with inheritance. It is derived classes can see it, but nobody else can. It's kind of like it's in between public and private. Derived classes can see protected stuff, but people out in Maine cannot see it. Polymorphism. Anybody got this one figured out? Raise your hands if you know polymorphism. It's been a while. Can you define it?
I can give an example.
That's about the best way you can define it. It's not an easy thing to define. Go for it.
You can have different, I guess I would call them libraries, where you can have like, music, and then you can have violin and saxophone.
So subtypes.
Drums, yeah.
Okay.
And basically, you're inheriting all of those three subtypes into the main category.
Good.
And then that goes into the main program.
That's basically it. The only thing that I'd add to that is the derived classes, when they inherit, the derived classes can be treated as multiple types at the same time. It could be a base type or it could be a derived type. And it comes in very handy when you have all these derived types, but you treat them all as a base type. You can do lots of powerful tricks with it. All right, additional questions. How long ago, some of you may not have had 1410. Raise your hand though, tell me how, just start yelling it out. Your last 1410 class, when was it? Last summer, a year ago. How many of you are just from last semester spring? You're just continuing on. How many of you are 2 or 3 semesters away? How many are past 2 or 3 semesters? Maybe? You don't remember? How many of you took it here at Weber State? Raise of hands. Elsewhere? Where's yours from?
Davis Tech.
Davis Tech, all right. Your IDE, what do you use to, I should probably be even pickier. What is an IDE? Define it.
It's your development environment.
Integrated development environment. What IDE do you use?
Visual Studio.
All right, so I want to know, just for my sake, how many, if you use the straight up Visual Studio Professional or Standard, raise your hands. There's also a code. There's a new one, Visual Studio Code. It's kind of a very lightweight version of it.
I've used code a little bit.
You've used code a little. It's up and coming. People are enjoying it, but
It's a
this
lot more simple, but it doesn't have as many.
doesn't have as many features. The Visual Studios usually, if you don't know, you're probably using the Visual Studio Standard or Professional. Anybody using anything else, such as Xcode? What are you using? VI. All right.
Eclipse.
Eclipse. And are you doing, so your Vim are using Linux or Mac? You're doing Linux? Eclipse. What environment are you using? What OS?
Windows.
Windows? All right. Do you know the compiler you're using? No. Anybody else? Anyone using Xcode for Mac? Nobody. Anybody? It's a pet peeve of mine. I can't stand Sea Lion. We're all right with that one? Good. I can't stand that one. So I can make this work with, this class has worked with other kinds of IDEs. If you use VI, that's fine. You just have to tack on a debugger. And the debugger most commonly is GDB, and it's a text-based debugger. So you can do it. I've seen people be very proficient at it, but usually a graphical editor is a lot better. Eclipse is a great one for Linux. I use Eclipse in Linux all the time. Visual Studio has very nice, clean debugging. Xcode for Mac has very nice, clean debugging. Sea Lion makes you jump several hoops and it doesn't get you anywhere. Most common compilers, of course, Microsoft's compiler. G++ is the most common open source compiler. There's another up-and-coming open source compiler called Clang. And then there's some oddball ones after that. Intel has a very popular compiler. PGI has a compiler. You'll find some other compilers out there, but I almost always run into the first three I listed. All right, are we good on the review? I understand if you don't know a lot of these. We will cover it and review it. The first 8-9 weeks of the semester feels like there's a lot of review, slowly going through topics, taking our time, understanding the topic, doing a lot of side topics along the way, and then after about the midpoint, I feel like we've reviewed enough, and then we start hitting topics quick. Bam, 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 2 or 3 topics a day. So you'll find a definite change of pace after about the midterm. So I will lead you in, I'll walk you slowly, pay attention, and then we go fast. All right, see if the online students have said anything yet. Coblox Adam, that's interesting. My apologies, I'm getting over a cold. Let's pull up the Canvas course, just the intro. Oh dear. Some of you may have already seen this one. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I'll let you read it in your own free time. I do have a first day quiz. You'll need to go take it. There's no time limit on it. There's no limit on how many times you can take it. You can take it from any location you want. The only requirement is that in order to unlock assignment 1, you have to get 100% on this first day quiz. It's not a hard quiz. It's just simply a verification on my end that you read the course material. It's more of my anti-whining test. I get a lot of students who complain and say, you never taught this. So I make them take a quiz where they verify that they know they answered the question. That way, when they complain about it, I can say, well, you told me you knew it. The tips for success. What if people heard about this course? Tell me, I've been through this course. I'm not going to get fired. You can tell me whatever you want. It can be personal about me and how I look, how I sound versus the course material. What do you think? What have you heard?
They say people change their major after that.
They change majors after this course. All right, what else? It's hard. Anybody here, don't take it from Brad, take it from Kyle Fates? I guess you wouldn't be here if... I guess the rest of you haven't heard much at all. You're just impressionable students. I can be as hard or easy as I want, and you just go along with it. So I say it's a difficult course, not because I intentionally make it difficult. I teach the class to the level it needs to be taught. I don't teach it over beyond it. I don't underdo it. It just has to be taught at a minimum level. I teach to that level. When I say it's a class where people change their majors, it's a make or break, I need to be a little clearer on that. Attrition happens in any STEM course, science, technology, engineering, math. That there's more than half of all students who sign up and say that they're going to major in a course fall away by the time they hit upper division. Being here means you're already well ahead of about a third of the students. You should pat yourself on the back for that. A lot of students have already fallen away in 1030, 1400, and 1410. And more will fall away in this class, despite my sincere attempts to not have anybody fall away. I don't want it. CS is a great career. Don't fall away, and yet a lot of you will. I'll have about 20 to 30% more attrition, and that's typical at this point. The reason for the attrition in this class is that I simply ask you to write or complete assignments that could take hours. Hey, this assignment might take you 5 hours. I'll give you a week and lots of hints. I'll give you time in class. Just go at it step by step. Some of you have never had that experience in your life. You've had junior high, high school courses, college courses where the assignments were either an hour or less, or they gave you specific step-by-step instructions, almost like a paint-by-numbers painting to do it. And you didn't have to think one bit. You just followed the instructions, looked at the answer. Did it make sense? If so, great, move on to the next one. This is more of an engineering course. I draw you a grand picture. Here is the idea we want to do. You can draw it on paper. You can explain it to somebody else. You can make a claymation movie about it. You get the idea. You get how to program. Okay, put the two together, program the idea, and make it work. And a lot of students simply don't know how to do such a thing. Some of you do, a lot of you do. So yeah, you just keep going. What happens if you get stuck? Do you panic and give up and change majors and go see psychiatrists? Some of you will. I'm serious. Oh no, I've never been confused before. What do I do? I've stuck. I've done this thing for 5 hours and I got no further. If you're in industry, that's every day on the job. You just kick up your legs, put some headphones on, and say, just keep poking at it. Eventually you get through it. If you get stuck, you can ask me. But you have to understand that these things sometimes they take time. If an assignment takes 20 hours, let it take 20 hours. You'll be a much better person because of it. If it takes 1 hour, great. You already knew the material. Be okay on that so far? I don't want any, if it's overwhelming to you, if it feels like it's too much, come see me. I don't want it to be a miserable experience. I've been a student. I know what it's like. Everybody can I'd say that about 99% of students have the mental capacity to pass the class if they have the right study habits. I've seen some fantastic students who have no background or business being a part of computer science culture. How do I say it? Everybody has a business of being part of it, but you could just tell their whole life experience up to this point had nothing to do with computer science. They had no care for it. But they took their study habits, they applied it, and they were fantastic. They were top in the field. I go over this more and more. Let's go over some good study habits, though. How to write programs. Number 1. Let me zoom in on this a bit. Write a few lines of code, then test those lines of code, then ensure it works. How many of you like to write the entire program once, then start trying to compile it, and then you try to debug it? You will have a miserable experience in this class. No, stop doing that. That is a guaranteed mechanism. I have never seen a single student pass my class with that attitude. You have to write 5. If you write anything, I wish that there was like some little electronic implant I could stick in your head that anytime you write more than 5 lines of code, it naturally makes you irritable and paranoid. And you have to run your code to make sure it works. But then the paranoia goes away. Then you write 5 more lines and you're paranoid all over again. That's the sign of a successful developer. We went over this one. Pick away at it. You'll get through it. Watch the program flow using a debugger, stepping over in and out. Debugging helps you understand what the program is doing and why. Far too many of you, I could show this to you right now. UHF Rubik's Cube. This is how many of you will do your programs.
No. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. Is this it?
Any of you relate to that? Your program is the Rubik's Cube. You are the blind person. The console is the homeless guy saying yep or nope. And you just start twiddling variables till you get there. Is it ever going to work? Yeah, maybe if you have a million years, but should you do that approach? No, a lot of you will try it. That's not the right way to do it. You instead need to understand, have a visual picture, draw it out on paper. You need to be able to state what you think the program will do before you do it. If you're just blindly running stuff, like, I coded something and you're thinking about the Jazz or, I don't know, there's nothing else worth thinking about. You're thinking about the Jazz some more, the Utah Jazz. And you see if the program works. Just don't do it that way. Think it out. Make sure that all your variables match. Make sure nothing surprises you. Draw out the program on paper. That will be very common in class, especially when we hit linked lists and arrays. Ask yourself if you understand exactly what the syntax is doing. A ton of understanding comes from simply saying, what does this line of code do? I don't get it. Hit the discussion forums, ask me by email. I have two ranges of students who ask for help. Number one, the student who doesn't want to think at all and likes to troll for answers. They come at me every 5 minutes, nipping and pecking at me. Hey Brad, can you help me with this? I give him a small hint. Thanks Brad, that got this line of code working. 5 minutes later. I'm stumped at the next line of code, what do I do? No, don't do that. My rule of thumb, try a program for a minimum of an hour before you ask for help. If I give you help that answers that question, I have reset the hour timer. Poke at it for another hour and before you ask for help again. What if it's 11:30 p.m. and the assignment is due in a half hour? That's your fault, not mine. The other end is the proud student who wouldn't dare ask them for help. 20 hours goes by. Oh, I wouldn't dare bother the instructor. He has a life and I'm a poor student. It would show weakness on my part to ask for help. Do the math. You pay about $25 a class period. You pay good money to ask a question. Please bug me. You are supposed to ask for help if you're on that other end. So when I complain about students, I'm only complaining about students on the far ends of the spectrum. You in the middle, great, that's what I want. You should be asking. This class is more or less designed that you can't get through it without asking for help. In fact, I kind of want to throw secret little impossible contradictions or paradoxes in the code just to see if I can force you to ask for help. As an evil experiment on my part. I'm not quite there yet, but just let you know you should be. Use tutors. We're trying to find some. Summer's harder for tutors. I think we have some at the Ogden campus. I think the Davis Learning Center has some. Listen to every lecture video. I give out lots of good hints along the way. My jokes may not be as good, but the hints are better. YouTube, they're on YouTube. You know about the 1.5x feature on YouTube? Who's not know? Does anybody not know about that? It's go into a video, you can specify the speed. It doesn't make me high-pitched, it just makes me talk faster. If I'm talking too fast, you can do 0.75 speed. It's also really good for some music that you like. Go back and listen to it on faster or slower speeds, it kind of opens up a whole new world.
Do you put links to your videos?
Yes, the videos will be in the pages link. Bam, right there. Jeff will be helping at Ogden campus for tutoring. Good to hear. Study groups, I strongly encourage them. Hit the discussion forums, just say, hey, I'm forming a study group, I'll be at the so-and-so place, feel free to come join us. We'll talk about that more. Do every homework assignment. The number one way people don't pass this class is by skipping homeworks. Be persistent, don't give up. All right, the bad study habits. I think we talked about these. Yeah, we talked about this one. Avoiding the debugger, that's also a terrible way. You can't get through the class. Wanting my PDF to only be instructions on how to do it, not engineering guidelines. Oh, yes. Sloppy programmers. If you find yourself having misspelled words, mistabbed, or you don't tab in your code correctly, you say to yourself, oh, I'll clean that up later. You don't do any tabbing at all. Your variables are all X, Y, Z, and then you wrap around A, B, C. You don't care about naming these. Sloppy programming runs into a brick wall in this course. There's just too many moving pieces. As I said, ignoring the lecture videos is a problem. We talked about that one. We talked about that one. Oh, yeah, this one. Using online cheating resources such as Course Hero or Chegg. I give an automatic failure for students I find using these materials to answer their assignments. I consider these not to be online tutors. I consider them to be online cheating. I have the backing of the university on this one. These sites, if you have no morals at all, then Course Hero and Chegg are the sites for you. They're basically advertising themselves as paid tutoring, but in reality they take other faculty's homework assignments, then pay people to complete homework assignments, and then turn around and tell and advertise they have solutions for these assignments. And you can pay them money and they will give you solutions to all assignments that you need. It might cost a little bit. In fact, I signed up for my own Course Hero account, and the first thing they did is, welcome, Brad. It seems you're in data structures. Can we offer you some assignments to help you out? They were my own assignments with my own solution key in it. It actually said copyright 2018, Brad Peterson. The salesman said, hey, can we give you some more resources? No, you're making money off my copyrighted work. Get rid of it. Are you sure you don't want anything? I want you guys to burn your company to the ground. Here's some more material. So yes, I'm actually instituting, and I'll be trying things out this semester. Some anti-cheating material to help me verify if you're doing the assignments on time and did you turn in the assignment that I gave you. I'm starting to do some tricks and tagging work. So anybody using other online resources, I'll be able to, every assignment's fingerprinted in a sense. So if I see my assignments popping up online, I can match whoever uploaded it. I'm cracking down on cheaters. I don't like it. The syllabus. 2 ways to fail the class. Number 1, get below a 73.3% on your overall grade. Number 2, average less than 60% on the exams. My apologies, this is not a fun cold. I gotta go over this because there's always a few students, 2 or 3 students who are right on that barrier. And I want you to know what happens if you're in that barrier. If you are the kind of student who starts, I had this happen last semester. You start out the semester slow, 40% on exams, 40% on assignments. That you say, I'm not giving up, I'm gonna work hard. You study much harder, 90% on assignments, 90% on exams. If I do the overall grade on that, you still come out at a 70% or less. Should I be failing that kind of student? I don't think I should, but I don't just give you an automatic grade. A pass. I work with you. Let's say you hit 73.2% on this or 59% on this one. I judge you by your background. I look a little bit more and I can work with you. If you get 100% on assignments and 40% on exams, I don't care. You're failing the class. I see that far too often. The reason I had to do this is there's far too many people who cheat their way through assignments. They ask friends, they ask uncles, they ask tutors. The assignments are done for them. I get it. You have to prove it to me on the exam. Can you demonstrate you know the material? Students who get 100% on assignments and 40% on exams, yeah, there's a problem there. I could be like the math department and say, no, 100% of your grade is on exams. How many of you like that? It's a lot of stress. Nobody likes that. You wish it could be 100% on assignments. I do too. This is my middle ground. If you find yourself in that window of you want to pass but you're not sure, come see me. All right, the worst ones for me to deal with are students who get 40% on assignments and 100% on exams. They know the material, but they didn't do anything. Now what do I do? Don't be that student. We've talked about this. Oh, quiz section. From here on out, after today, I will give a 6-digit code mixed in throughout the lecture. It might be 1 digit at a time every 5 minutes. You might get all the digits at the end of the lecture. But throughout the lecture, I will embed the participation code. You then have to go online and supply that 6-digit code. You get a few chances to try it. You cannot unlock upcoming assignments without supplying all the participation digits. I do want you listening to lecture videos. This needs to be updated. It says I'm teaching the course Tuesday and Thursday. This is copied and pasted. I gotta fix it. It's Monday, Wednesday at 5:30. You know this, you're here. I have a pen board, so I won't be using the whiteboard. Everything I put on the pen board will be on my screen. It will be recorded. Online students, you can come to class. Face-to-face students, you're effectively the same as online students. Some of you have had the light bulb go off. You mean I don't have to be here tomorrow? There's nothing that's keeping you here. I did so much work to make this accessible that I hit a point when I realized there is no difference now between my online and my face-to-face classes. I've got a role, but beyond that, I don't know who's where. I've merged you online. When you have the discussions, you'll be talking to online students and vice versa. So I want you here, but I understand if you don't, if you don't come, which a lot of you will stop coming. I get it. I've been a student. I can say though that students who come to class do better overall. There's better conversations. The structure keeps you in line. You ask better questions, you get help quicker. I strongly prefer you come to class. We got the Google Hangouts. We talked about compilers, discussion forums. Please use those if you get stuck. My teaching style is fluid. I will extend some homework assignments if they're too difficult. I will slow down and reteach topics. I simply do not say, schedule by schedule, here's what I cover. I always have one student who, my wife is this way. That's the opposites in our relationship. She is as structured and calendar as it gets. She goes to calendar stores and asks about their calendars. There was an organizational store, and it was her favorite place to go in the world. Everything has to be structured. Everything has to be calendared. She wants to plan her life out years in advance, and I see that like communism. That's not freedom. Freedom is not having a deadline. I want to go out and have 0 deadlines whatsoever. I don't care. So I'm much more on the other end. If you're on the scheduled end, I'm sorry. If assignments, let me know. If you're pulling all-nighters to get assignments done, I need to know that. You have lives. I need to work you, but you have lives. Keep me in line. There is a book. It's optional for the class. It's on the syllabus. I'd say about 10% of the students get it. I'd recommend the ebook. It's a good supplemental guide. You won't be using it much after the semester. Don't pay $70 for it. I am not a fan of publisher prices. The author gets $1, the publisher gets the rest. I'm not exaggerating. It's a real racket, and I want it to go away. Any questions on what I've said so far?
On the code, which will be given 6 digits, will you say that this is a
Yeah, I say, here's a participation digit, just so you know, and I'll highlight it, and I'll give you some time to hear it. I'll say it 2 or 3 times. Some days I'm a jerk, and I'll write down a number, and I'll highlight it, and I'll say, this is not the digit, just to throw off the people who are trying to troll the video, finding stuff. So you'll want to listen. Syllabi. Not much else. Email, contact, phone number if you need it. I will be in the office at least an hour before class, but summer hours, we don't officially have office hours. If you need to see me, just let me know. I'll come in. There's the textbook, course description we talked about. You guys know this as well. If you have a disability, let me know. If you think you have a disability but you haven't taken care of it yet, I'd recommend it. It is, I'd say about 90% of the disabilities I see are mental disabilities, not physical disabilities. It is also built in case law. It is not, I have to do it because the Weber State says I have to do it or I want to be a nice person. It is, I will get fired and we will get sued as a university if I don't do it. It's not that I feel like I have a gun to my head. I'm just letting you know, court say I have to do it. All right, I'll do it. I also understand people have some very interesting life stories. I'm more than happy to work with you. A lot of them are, I see a lot of anxiety, depression, PTSD shows up there quite often. The kind of accommodations the students get are typically in this class time and a half on tests. For whatever reason, there's a learning disability, so you get more time. Most of the other things are taken care of because I post lecture videos. If there's anything else, you just have to let me know ahead of time, give me the disability document, and then we're official from there. Time for the course, I'd say 4 to 12 hours a week is average. What every university course should be, I expect it for this class. We've talked about this over and over again. Grading breakdown, assignments 50%, quizzes 10%, exams 20%. There's my alternate failing policy. You can do one homework assignment as a redo or late for half credit. That extends all the way through final exam week. So if you get 40% on an assignment, you can redo it for 50%. A stupid thing that people do is they're too proud of their assignments and they don't want to turn in an 80% assignment. They want 100% only. So they would have got 80%, but they didn't turn it in. So they turn it in late and get 50%. If you got an 80% done, I will give you 80%. Turn in what you got. There's no harm in it. You can also turn in assignments multiple times. But don't turn it in before the deadline and then turn it in 2 hours after the deadline and then say, please score both and choose the higher one. I get that way too much. No. I'll take the latest on that. Letter grades, I go down to 0.1% to make it fair. Assignments, I like to give you at least a week on them. I got to update this. Darn it, they're on Thursday, Tuesday days again. I'll typically give out assignments on Wednesdays, have them due the following Wednesday. Quizzes, I like to off-sync those. Those will be given out Mondays, due the following Monday, but that's not a hard schedule. Some of these assignments will take 9 days. The reason I like to give you at least a week is within a week, a university student has at least 1 day to do assignments. That also gives you 3 class periods to ask questions, and usually 1 or 2 to do lab time. There are some review quizzes. I like to cover stuff about C++ from this course and prior courses. And these quizzes are harder, they're meaner. They're meant to trip you up so you learn. You can take it as many times as you want, as long as you want, wherever you want, but you don't get credit unless you get 100%.
Are they open though or closed?
They are open, they're wherever you want. They're open cheating. I would not recommend it because it's costly. Actually, no, they're not open cheating because this says you can't do that. But I just want you to know the topic well enough so you learn from it. My midterms and finals are not like the quiz style. Cheating policy. I'm going to hit cheating harder again this semester. I'm trying out some new anti-cheating tools. Here is the cheating disclaimer. Most common way people cheat in this class is number 1, find prior solutions online. Number 2, find somebody else's solution online and submit it as their own. Number 3, working in a group, and it's not usually a group, it's usually just 2 people, and turning in the exact same code or thinking you'll be clever and slightly modifying the code and get away with it. I've got tools that actually analyze code not for character by character match, but actual code logic syntax. So the way you solve the problem is how it matches it. Now the question comes up, what's the difference? If I'm in a study group, we work on it together, what happens? That's fine. It turns out that even in study groups, logic is typically somewhat different. People still solve it in different ways. I've had a brother and sister twin. They were close. They did everything together. Their assignments looked completely different. Their logic was completely different. Then I had a mother and son combo who were cheaters. They were partners in crime. They took each other's assignments. They tried to modify it by changing variable names, changing tab spacing. My tools caught it. It was 100% exact. My favorite one semester I got to go over this more because there are students who don't realize, they don't know what cheating is. And this is more a problem in other cultures, but it does show up still in America, where they feel the university is, the professor asks the question, the student's job is to find an answer by any means necessary. And that's the goal. I once had a student go so far and find an answer key for a textbook in a class I used. Not only copied and pasted the answer from the answer key, also the figure from the answer key into his assignment and turned it in. Said, you asked the question, I found you the answer. No, that's cheating. I'm sorry if you don't have the common sense for that, it is cheating. There's some great Arthur cartoons on PBS. You know Arthur, the crazy-looking aardvark guy? He looks like he needs to be punched. He does. He's got that geeky shirt. It talks about cheating at a 5-year-old level. I can give that to you. The other popular one is, as I mentioned, finding other people's code. I had an extra credit assignment. I never do this, but one semester I did. And this student didn't want to do the assignment, went to Google, typed in the name of the assignment, typed in C++, found the first result, stripped off the author's name on it, turned it in. Not only had it nothing to do with the topic in this class, it just happened to be the same name. It wasn't even a self-compiling executable. It was a Windows library file. This student was going to pass the class, ended up failing on an extra credit assignment. That takes skill. So if you're working in a group, if you're worried about it, just put a comment in there. Hey, just so you know, I worked on this assignment with such and such people. Great. You find 5 lines of code online on Stack Overflow. Great. That's how you're supposed to do stuff. If you're paranoid, put a little comment. I got these 5 lines from here. That makes sense. 5-line chunks, you should copy and paste. 100-line chunks, no, do not copy and paste that. If you're unsure, let me know. Are we good on that so far? If you have no morals, there's a lot of great paid cheating services out there. On the other end, It's like the prostitution of computer science. You want good money, go out there and sell your services. You can make a good 40, 50, 60,000 easy by just saying, I'll do your assignments for you. Course fees, we put these to good use. There's the breakdown of the course. Any other questions? I've gone over my 45 minutes. You guys must be bored. Did I cover everything? We good? Online? I probably shouldn't ignore you guys. All right. Well, then let's continue and just do some C++ review at this point. Which one of these topics should we cover first? How about this one? Dynamic allocation. I think everybody missed that one. Let's cover it in more detail. All right, I'm going to pull up my Visual Studio here. I'm using 2019. It's pretty nice. Don't need that. Let's pull this up. I got to download the newest updates. All right, let's put this down. Where are we at here? This is the most important topic of the day. Which theme do we use for Visual Studio this semester? Blue, light, or dark? You like dark? Does that read better? All right. Nighttime mode. I typically start my programs with a little, my own little structure. I usually include IOStream. We'll include std, cin, cout, endl. We'll have int main, and I like to do cin.get, return 0, just to get us started. Does anybody need help getting to this point? You need me to create a new project, put it in, just so you can get up and running? All right. A lot of review throughout this class. What does that mean? Yes?
You're basically pulling in the library for input and output streams.
Yes, I want to pull in and compile the input-output stream library from STL, standard template library. Luke, you've answered. You can't answer again. What do those three mean? Or did you have a professor that did something different? Did any of you have a professor that did this? Is that how they did it? They're wrong. It's going to work, but they're still wrong. This is not the way, this is not proper. I try to be pickier on my C++ code in this class, like what's the term, grammar Nazi in the English world? I want to be very tight on my C++ standards, simply because industry is, not because I want to be a jerk about it. Exactness gives you, C++ opens the door to numerous options, and exactness keeps you safe. I want to code correctly. All right, so let's talk about the difference between these two. Do you know why you had to do that? How about this? What happens if I don't do either one of those? Now what?
No, what is-
Well, there's a red line there. That's the problem. Why is there a red line there? What did that mean?
It doesn't know what it is
It doesn't know what CN is. Why?
because we didn't define it and didn't say where to take it.
Not quite. You're getting there. It turns out CN is really part of something called, it's really in the STD namespace. So if I want to use cin, I should be saying std : cin.get. I wanted to do something like this. Cout. Hello, everyone. Oh, I gotta do hello world. There. This is kind of like my press any key to continue. Or press enter to continue. Why do you need what's the whole point of saying std : Wouldn't it have been a lot nicer if they just left that off and you could just say cout and endl? What's the point of that? Anybody know? No one knows. Yes?
Isn't the double colon the scope resolution operator?
It is a scope, the double colon is the scope resolution operator, but what's the point?
It's within the STD.
It is within the std namespace, not the class, but the namespace. But what's the point? I can tell you in C++, everything has a reason. If you're the kind of kid that just asked why, and your parents said shut up, now's your moment to shine. You can ask why, because there's a good answer for everything. It isn't here just because. No one knows why. The answer is, in larger projects, the chances that two libraries will have the same name tool increases the more libraries you bring in. Does that make sense? Bring in 2 libraries, it's not likely they're going to have 2 things with the same name. You bring in 100 libraries, it's very likely that there might be 2 classes point, or 2 couts, or 2 endls. Someone's going to start conflicting names. It's like this in society. We have last names. Why? It would get rather confusing to just call everybody by their first name. There's too much chance for confusion. So, we add last names to separate people out. In C++, we add namespaces to separate out people's tools. So the STL did this, namespace, std, and they made something called cout, and they made something called cin, and they made something called endl. I won't go over all those types. Whoops, gotta put these in curly braces. But the idea here is that now, by letting them control cout, cin, endl, and std, we don't have to worry about any kind of conflicts. We should never be adding stuff to std namespace. That's somebody else's. But we can make our own namespace and add our own cout or cin into our own namespace. Does that make sense so far? std kind of acts like the last name, where these act like the first name. So you could go through and give everybody their full proper name. And now it's clear, the compiler knows what you're talking about. But it would be like if you go to a family dinner. You don't want to call everybody by their first and last name all the time. That'd be a bit awkward. You want shorthand. If you do this shorthand, you assume that everything that's unknown can be found in the std namespace. This can once again increase chances of collisions. It also makes for slower compile times because it tries to look up everything. And if you start doing this with other tools, using namespace, proprietary tool 1. Hey, if it's not an std, look there. And if it's not in that one, look here. Do you see how the chances of collisions are going to increase if the moment you start saying look in everybody's? It kind of defeats the whole purpose. So the cleaner way and the preferred way is to state, if you're going to use a tool a lot, say if you find a cin, know that it's really an std. That way I can use the shorthand code later. Same with my cout, same with my endl. You'll find a lot of coding shops that prefer exactness, and they actually forbid using these things. They want you to say, give me the first and last, or the namespace on everything, just so we're clear. In this class, I'll be doing this all the time. Good so far? No concerns about cout, cn.get, press any key to press enter to continue. You have to return an integer. I'll run the program, and hello world. I hit my enter to continue. Oh wait, Visual Studio 2019 has its own press any key to continue now. That's so nice. Some of your IDEs now do this. I won't need this, but some of you might in your other IDEs. I love that I made it purple too. Alright, so let's start with dynamic allocation. We'll do this, no, we'll do static allocation. Allocate an array on the stack. Let's do an array of ints. Alright, this array goes on the stack. I can load it up with some stuff. How about for int I equals 0? We'll say stack array is at I is equal to the square I times I. And just to make sure that it's actually being used, let's print it out. Not an endl yet. We'll do an endl, do a space, and then we'll do an endl. There. So just a quick test. Did I make an array? And did I load data into it? Are you sure that dark mode is good for you guys? You like it? It's kind of fuzzy from my point of view. I'll run the program. Bam. Oh, it didn't multiply I times I, did it? Oh, I'm only printing out I. Duh. Stack array at I. There we go. Good, those are my squares. Question for you. Could I ask the user for an array size and then allocate that array size on the stack? Yes? Let's try it. Cout, instead of hello world, please give me an array size. Me an array size. No endl here, but we will do an int r size. I need a semicolon there. And we will say cn r size. We're going to read it in. Now what? I've got R size. What do I do with it?
Where you say 100 there.
Where I say the 100 here, put it right there. And we should be putting the same thing here, correct? So it loops correctly. All right. There's a red line. Why is there a red line? There are build errors. Quick heads up for build errors. Find in whatever IDE you use, find the good error window that summarizes all errors. Here it can be found in View, Error List. And it shows me my errors and my warning. We have expression did not evaluate to a constant, which says it's on line 13. It's hard to see, but it jumps to line 13 for me. Let me go back to it. And there's some other spillover errors, but the one I'm looking at is this one. Error line 13. It doesn't match up well here. Expression did not evaluate to a constant. What does that mean?
When you're doing it automatic or when you're doing it on the stack, it has to be a constant value and it can't. It has to be known at
Arrays allocated. Oh, I left my pen in my office. Arrays allocated. Can I do this with? I'm going to try it. Draw. Oh, I don't have a. I can't draw manually. We'll be right back. I'm going to go grab my pen. All right, we're back. Let's try this again. Oh, now the pen's not going to work. Why? Let's pause the video. We're back. Let's draw the stack this way. So imagine you have this stack. This stack is roughly a few megabytes in size. And when you declare an array of 100 integers, it will actually set aside some part of your, those are supposed to be ... It'll set aside some bit of your stack for the array of 100 items. The stack is compile time information. It's very strict. We'll go over this more in detail another day. But for the program to work, the executable has to know where it can find exact bits of variables in exact places on the stack. Dynamic allocation, or in other words, array sizes that are known only at runtime, break this model. How can it know where in the stack it can find the array if that array could be anywhere? The compiled program is compiled for exact information, and for that reason, you can't put a dynamic array on the program stack. It just doesn't make sense. Fortunately, we have this other area called the program heap. Come back to me. Nothing wants to work. This is always good. I'd pause the video, but my mouse button. There we go, we're back. Let's do a view zoom. Here we go, see that stack? Oh, I wish I could zoom more than that. If that's the stack, is it not drawn? There we go. Come on, pen. Does it only, oh, the drawing only goes so large, you see that? There we go, we'll do it this way. Heap. It's big. How big? Gigabytes in size or larger, depending on the kind of machine you're working on. But this is the place for you to put random stuff that you don't know at compile time, but you do know at runtime. Make sense so far? For that reason, we cannot create a user-sized array on the stack.
works.
That you can ask the user for an array size like that and it's going to work? It's not working. Did it compile and run? I don't believe you. But I'm glad you called me out. And you put in 12. Do, oh no, you know what though? See out. I bet I know what's happening. Change line 20 to stack array I. Stack array, square bracket I. Now try it. Succeeded. I'm wrong somewhere. He proved me wrong. I have no idea why that happened. It shouldn't have worked. I need to give an answer for you next class period. Don't do it this way. I mean, I wish I could say, well, on mine it's red and mine's better than yours. You're probably using the Clang compiler, I believe. I wonder, is it G++ or Clang, or do you know? You have no idea. I wonder if it's some new little C, either the compiler allows it or it's a C++. It can't be a C++. I gotta know that. That's got me baffled. I won't be able to sleep tonight. Just don't do it that way. Let's do this. Do 10 million. And I'll do the same thing here. I'm going to change. I'll type in the 10 million again here. Oh, already gave me a problem. Before it even let me do some user input. What's going on? Now some of you are going to see a whole bunch of computer-looking code and give up. Assembly, hexadecimal, stop reading, that's too much. No, you got to pick out the right stuff. What's the error? Unhandled exception somewhere in your executable. What's the error? Stack Overflow. How do we figure that error? Do we go to Stack Overflow and ask, I got a Stack Overflow? No, what does that mean? Do you remember our stack? How big is it? Just a few megabytes in size. An int is 4 bytes. I asked for 10 million ints. That was 40 million bytes. Was there room for 40 million in my stack? No, what happens? It kept going, and it overflowed the stack. That is why it's called Stack Overflow. What happens when you do 10 million on yours? Is it running? I want to know how it freaks out. It's very...
It shows on the first 4 links from the stack array on the i2 thread executional pad access.
So something went wrong. So it's putting the array on the stack. That's where it shouldn't do it. All right. So how do we get around this problem? How do we ask the user for an array? Make it dynamic? Well, we can't use a stack anymore. We have to use the heap. And how do you get something on the heap? The new keyword. There's lots of ways, but we will use the new keyword for now. So let's not do it the stack way. That's bad. Let's do it the heap way. And there's a lot of syntax here. I'll start it out for you. I'll just call it ARR for array. Like that. Oh, it fixed my star. Oh, that. Wait, it fixed it the right way. That makes me happy. Change that to ARR. Change that to ARR. Got a question here. Whoops. Come on. Yeah, that's assembly. Sorry, I'm just trying to. There we go. If I run this, it's going to run for a while. I'll just do 1,000. Bam, there we go. It did work on 1,000. If I do 10 million, it's going to go for a while. Console output is very, very slow. Don't wait for it to get done. Just close the program. But it didn't crash, correct? Using the heap is helping us out. Now let's talk about some of the problems. We haven't discussed what's going on here, and we haven't discussed something really bad that we did called a memory leak. Let's cover both of those. Oh, the new keyword. I don't think anything confuses students more in this course than this keyword. There's so many things going on. Let me see if I can write it out for you. Nope. Why is that here? I don't know. Keyword. Let's go ahead and view font 14 for now. All right, the C++ new keyword. It's C++'s way of asking the operating system to allocate free space on the heap and return the address of the 0th element of that stuff. So C++ doesn't set aside the space. It's a request to the operating system. The operating system manages the heap. And so you're kindly saying, hey, operating system, I need 40 million bytes. Do you got that, please? And what can the operating system say in response? Either yes or no. Usually it's a yes. And if it is a yes, what does it give you? It'd be kind of dumb if it just said, yeah, I did it, not telling you where. It gives you an address to the spot where you can start to find your 40 million bytes. The very first byte of your 40 million bytes. Make sense? So if the operating system gives you an address, what do you store that address in? What holds addresses? Pointers hold addresses. For that reason, I have created a pointer called ARR. It holds addresses. This means those addresses, if you go to that address, assume all your data are ints. Are you okay with that so far? How do you get your data back from your addresses? Well, if I did a cout ARR, what's it going to tell me? Yeah, what is ARR? The address. So what will it give me? The address. Let's prove it. What is that? 0106B718. It's a 32-bit address. In other words, all ARR holds is a 32-bit address. Nothing more, nothing less. Does it know how big the thing is that it's pointing to? No. Does it know how small it is? Does it even know if that space has got valid data in it? No, it doesn't. All it knows is it has an address. So how do you get the data out? You had a hand up.
Doesn't it know how big it is based on the variable type?
It doesn't know anything. All it knows is that if it goes to that spot in memory, it assumes that the data is ints. I could be a jerk to it and cast it from an int pointer to a double pointer. Hey, that address of yours, you treat it as doubles. Does it know if it's ints or doubles? Has no idea. All it knows is there's bits out there, and it's going to interpret those bits as if they're ints. Yes?
On that line, could you do a pointer as auto?
You can do it this way. I forget, you might be able to. Or yeah, you can. Auto keyword, everybody's friend now. What does it do? If the data type can be inferred, the compiler will put the correct data type in there for you. For example, what is new returning? An int pointer. Because new always returns a pointer, and it has to be an int pointer because you asked for an array of ints. So the compiler will turn that auto into an int star for you. Because that's the data type. Questions on that so far? So I'm in debug mode. I put a breakpoint on line 16. There's usually a little column in any IDE where you can stick a breakpoint. I can go look at my watch or my locals. Here we are, locals. Let's do watch. ARR. What is that ARR? 00665770. What's that? The address of where it expects to find the data. How do I get to the data? I can dereference a pointer. I could do it this way. See out? The first element, or I should say the 0th element, is the element at index 0 is, it's a more appropriate way. You can dereference a pointer by putting a star in front of it. Now here's the annoying thing about asterisk. A lot of syntax gets reused. Asterisk has 3 uses that we've seen now so far. First, multiply. You can do 8. You can do something like variable or 8 times 3. Make sense to you? You can do pointer declaration. Int star. That means my data type is an int pointer. It holds addresses which we assume are pointing to ints. 3 is dereference a pointer, which means go to that address and get the data. Do not confuse usage. It's just like in the English language how we have lots of meanings for the word bat. A lot of homonyms out there. Same thing here. This asterisk has nothing to do with that asterisk. This means it's declaring a pointer type. This means it's dereferencing the data. All right, what is that index 0? There's so much good stuff in this class. I love it. Step over. Oh, is step over still F10? It is. F10, F10. What is it, that spot? What was there? Garbage. Why? Did any of you buy a house on like a, what is it, repossession or short sale? Has anybody ever got a house like that? You got it for cheap. You got it as is. Whatever you get to keep. Had family or relatives do it? Nobody? Usually there's a great story. All right, imagine you buy this house and say, hey, this is a repo. The other people, they went bankrupt. They wanted a house far larger than they could afford. Couldn't pay their loan back. Went to the bank just wants to get rid of it. You got the house. You go out of that house, is it going to be vacuumed and cleaned up? No. Dead things in corners. Usually there's the pet restroom corner or playroom, and you've done it. There's a lot of garbage in it. My father was an appraiser for homes. He had to evaluate how much homes were worth. Sometimes homes are so bad, he literally said, the cost of the land, if this was a flat piece of land, is this much. The cost to demolish the house is this much. Here's the value of the property. In a way, memory is like that. In heap, you just have a bunch of RAM, or whatever heap is, and it's a bunch of ones and zeros. Is C++ going to clean it all up for you and say, oh, here's your 40 million bytes, all zeroed out. I even added a car air freshener in there for you. No, what does it give you? Here's your garbage. It's yours. You're the god of this universe. Good luck. So what did we happen to get? Whatever was there in memory, that garbage. In fact, sometimes, let me look it up. Some of this garbage looks familiar, and that looks like familiar garbage to me. Programmer, let's put in, oh, it's not going to work because it's, I'll try it. 842, clear. 842150451 negative. It doesn't mean anything. I was looking, these bits don't look exciting. 11001101, 11001101, 11001101. Hey, there is a pattern. Sometimes, and I'm sure there's a meaning for it, sometimes garbage data is actually filled up with recognizable garbage for whatever reason. And a lot of Linux systems, it will actually zero fill on demand and take some time and zero it out for you. Here in Windows, it does not zero fill it on demand. It just gives me my garbage. Is that good or bad? Depends. If you have credit card numbers in memory, you actually need to zero it out before you release it. Otherwise, you've got credit card numbers floating about in memory. That has been a problem. Do you remember the heartbleed bug from a few years ago? Ask a random server, hey, just give me 64 kilobytes or whatever, if some random spot in your memory. There can be a lot of important stuff in memory. Anyways, let's get back to this. So here we are. We got the 0th element. Can I write data to the 0th element? Yes. Let's write data to the 0th element. Let's write 42. So see what's in that spot before. Write data to it. Go get it. Step over, step over, step over. Look at it. There's my garbage. There's my 42. Hey, this is good. Let's stop. View. There. How do I write something to element 1? Not element 0. I want to write to index 1. I could do it a manual way. It's called pointer arithmetic. Take the address and add on one array slot. Not one byte, but one array slot. Since it's an int, it'll actually add 4 bytes because ints are 4 bytes. So now it's going to go to array index 1. Write the data there. Get rid of that breakpoint. Garbage, now the 42 is there. Good. What would happen if I did that? Well, let's do something evil. Can I write to that index? It's actually the 667th index. For you, those of you who don't like evil numbers, we're still okay. Can I write there?
Depends on the size.
All right, I'm going to give it a size of an evil size. Can I write? So this one says, give me that many indices. But I'm going to really write to the 667th slot. I can't? Sure did. It wrote there. Why?
To the next one. It's the last one.
What if I said, no, let's give you an array of 500. Maybe we're just off by 1 in our heads. Okay, an array of 500. I still wrote there and got data back. Why? What's happening? This is an important point. What's going on here?
Write into the memory, but not to the actual.
I asked for an array of so many slots. Let's say I asked for an array of 500 slots. So here is slot 0, here is slot 1, here is slot 2, and it goes all the way up to slot 499, correct? But where did I go write? Where did I ask that it write to? I asked for data out here, correct? Will it write data out there? Yes. Because does it know that it can write data out there? What does C++ know? What is ARR? It's an address. Does it know the bounds of the thing it's pointing to? Has no knowledge of it. Could I be even more evil and say, no, let's not write that far ahead. Let's write backwards. Could I do that? What would that be the equivalent of here? Could I write data before the array? Does it know? It has no idea. It just says, here's an address, go over this many spots and write to it. Has no knowledge of bounds checking. And if I put a breakpoint there, you'll see that it's still, wait, is it not going to work this time? Every now and then you get lucky and it crashes. Depends what was there in memory. That's not going to work. I don't know what it's doing. Where are you at, program? Continue. Oh, I scrolled down. There we go. Yes, I wrote there. Garbage data before, wrote data into it. Now, just to summarize, I was doing this the long pointer arithmetic way. But because pointer arithmetic is so obnoxious, you can use the square brackets way as shorthand. I could have written it this way. The exact same thing. This is the exact same as that. Square brackets is just shorthand pointer arithmetic. Makes life a lot nicer. That said, will it still run those 3 lines of code, lines 17 through 19? Yes, Luke?
So how come the operating system isn't blocking you from accessing the data? Because I thought it would if you tried to push it up. Or is that what it meant to stack?
On the stack, it might let you, it might get mad at you. It's more chances for you to know if you're writing outside of bounds on the stack. On the heap, it really doesn't know. If I go way too far outside of my bounds in the heap, it'll get mad at me. But it has, if I'm within my bounds, it has no idea. On a side note, this is how a lot of hackers get around things. They will write outside of bounds in their array and do mean stuff that they shouldn't be doing, and put data they shouldn't be placing there and then run it. So this code will still work. If I go to my output, yeah, same code as before. Garbage data, I wrote data to it. Should we be writing outside of array bounds? No, it's a cardinal sin of computer science. Don't do it. Does C++ enforce you from, help prevent you from writing outside of array bounds? No, as I said, it's your garbage. If you want to go write on the neighbor's property, as long as he doesn't see and it doesn't cause problems, you can do it. It's not a good idea. So in C++, arrays are not objects. They are just chunks of raw data for you to control because you are the master of the computer. We are still not done with our topic yet. We've talked about new, but have we given our array back? We've asked for it, we never gave it back. That's called a memory leak. That's a real problem. So next time we'll talk about giving it back, and we'll talk more about some of our C++ review topics. I don't think we're going to get to the first assignment out. I'll see if I can. If a miracle occurs, I'll get you an assignment out on Wednesday. But more likely Monday will be our first assignment. Other questions for me? No participation code today. It was the intro day. There will be one next time. No other questions? All right, let's stop here. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.